Another Tulane team heading to a championship competition. Greenway football line play goes to the D, and baseball drops 2 or 3, but hits a high note at the end. Welcome to our regular edition of the Green Wave Report from On SI Tulane. I'm Doug Joubert. The Green Wave Report is a weekly rundown of stories we put together, analysis of what went on and what you can expect later in the week from On SI Tulane, part of the Sports Illustrated Network. If you like what we produce each week, we'd appreciate it if you'd like our stories and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It helps us in knowing what you like and what you don't like. We begin at the sands of Youngsville, Louisiana. That's a suburb of Lafayette, by the way, where the Tulane Beach Volleyball team claimed its first ever league title, taking the Conference USA Trophy by defeating FAU. One day later, the 16-team field for the 2026 National Collegiate Beach Volleyball Championship was announced by the NCAA Beach Volleyball Committee, and the Tulane women were tabbed as the number 14 seed. The Green Wave is matched up with number 3 seed UCLA. Tulane finished the season with a 26-13 mark and will be making another first ever an appearance in an NCAA tournament. The event is held in Gulf Shores, Alabama. It features a 16-team single elimination bracket. As the 14th seed, Tulane matching up against the number 3 seed UCLA. First round will be 3 p.m. on Friday, May 1st. The tournament continues until the championship duel on Sunday, May 3rd. We'll actually be speaking with Coach Ayat Zemet and some of the players and on a special edition of the Green Wave Report Thursday at 4 p.m. In this, our second of a 4-part series, we continue our wrap-up of what we saw at the conclusion of Tulane Spring Football. Last week, we examined the quarterback position. Today, we look at line play. Either the Tulane defensive front is elite, or the Tulane offensive line is lacking. Snap after snap this spring, the D-line owned the offense, showing tremendous pressure when a quarterback went back to pass, or running plays, rarely finding a crease in the Tulane defensive front as backs would run into brick walls for most plays. Truth be told, it does take time for an offensive line to gel. But there were too many times the O-line was being pushed backwards or not advancing at all on running plays. We'll see how things progress in the fall, but the O-line may be the biggest spot for improvement that we see on this Tulane squad. On the other side, the Wave D-line was disruptive in almost every aspect. The defensive front kept getting in the way of blocks and either making Tulane plays themselves or allowing Tulane linebackers room to do so. We were impressed by the defense overall for Tulane. Linebacker play, even without Dixon Agu, who will be ready in the fall, was textbook. And what we were most worried about before spring practice began, the secondary, has taken a huge leap. And we'll actually be talking about that in our 4th segment. Next week, though, the key offensive additions for the Wave. The Sluggerbirds were no-show for the first 2 games against league-leading UTSA this past weekend. Then on Sunday, they had a moment of intervention, shall we say, as associate head coach Anthony Izio asked head coach Jay Elman if he could speak his heart to the team. 20 minutes before the final game of the series, Iz called the position players aside and spoke from the heart.
He was kind of telling me a little bit about some things, and I said, go get them. Yeah. Have at them, take them, and go get them. And
he morning or before during the game?
They came out here about 20 minutes left before first pitch, so it was after batting practice.
Okay.
I went up to
everybody,
go. I went up just the position players. I went up to go get changed, and he, sometimes the head coach knows less than the assistants, and I felt it was really important that he got that off his chest and that he let those guys know about pretty much the same things I've been telling them the whole year.
3 hours later, the Green Wave had shown what was simmering under the surface for most of the season. They raced out to a 5-run lead, lost the lead a little bit later, and then roared back to retake and keep the lead for the victory. Ullman told us after the game the buttons pushed by Izio, the same buttons he had been trying to trigger all season. But the Izio buttons seemed to work, which doesn't bother him at all.
I'm appreciative of that. He carries the word. He's got pride. He's a really good coach, and he's going to be a good head coach someday. And I thought it was really important that he have that moment because it needed to happen. And then, post game, I also let him. It's usually me talking. I just said, "You got him. You got him. You get him. And so it's not about It's not about one person. It's about the group, And if somebody's got something that can get across to somebody, then I think that. But if anyone's deserved that and earned that, he certainly has.
We are not here to make excuses. As Dragnet's Joe Friday would have said, all we want are the facts, ma'am. So here you go. There are injuries aplenty for Tulane baseball. Ullman is down to only 4 position players on the bench. 4. Pitching has a half dozen recovering from ailments, half of which are done for the year. The good news is that the pitching is about to take a huge step in the right direction, we hope. Aiden Rath, who only pitched an inning in the opening series against Harvard, and Jack Frankel, who last appeared in a Saturday start versus Memphis over a month ago, are getting that close to being back in the pitching stable. Tuesday, 18th-ranked Southern Miss comes to Uptown for a 6:30 first pitch. Last week, the Green Wave fell to USM on a walk-off single in the bottom of the ninth to the Golden Eagles. We hope you've enjoyed our regular edition of the Green Wave Report. We'll have a special edition of the report on Thursday at 4 p.m. to get the latest from the Tulane Beach Volleyball program as they head to Alabama for the NCAA tournament. Our regular edition of the Green Wave Report returns Monday at 4 p.m. I'm Doug Joubert.